All right, we're live. Thanks for watching Numbskull News. And today I got the one and only TJ Pittinger, college football addiction, double fries, no slaw. And speaking of which, double fries, I looked it up, got like what, 19,000 subscribers on it right now?
Dude, it's
pushing for 20.
Yeah, trying to get there.
And the addiction channel, that's got what, 23,000 north of that.
Yeah.
In this space, college football, there's most of your competition. We're really competing against, the big national guys, the Joel Klatts of the world, ESPN, Fox, BS, all that. And by the way, I like Joel Klatt, but the big umbrellas out there.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we were always fighting against. So to see that, you're growing pretty damn nicely, that's pretty cool and pretty aspirational for me. So, I'm pretty sure people kind of wonder, are you able to make a living doing this?
Yeah, I am kind of. We were talking about this just before we got on air. Not this specifically, but something close to this. I am, but not from YouTube exclusively. I'll say that, like, so that people, that's a great question. And usually people just talk about football. So I actually like talking about this stuff too. Not that exclusively. Like, you've got to pull in some other things, whether that be sponsorships, like people, we have certain people that we shout out, or different local businesses. Double Fries comes from Guthrie's there in Tallahassee, which is kind of a Raising Cane's, similar type restaurant. So the YouTube money alone, like, there could be, really good months, or, really times where you pop off, where if you could do that, like, for example, the playoff month, I did really, really well in January, right? Because it was the playoff and national championship and all, there's a million games going on, and bowls and recruitments and portal and all that stuff. Well, but the problem is there's not, it's not the playoff every month, right? Like, you get to April and people are like, they ain't watching nothing, right? Or you get to May, right after spring ball. So YouTube alone, no, you've got to pull in some other things. I also do a little consulting on the side to kind of help with some of that. But YouTube alone, it's very peaks and valleys. And so now that couldn't sustain a full salary for a year, I don't think.
Right. No, it's good for people to know that. Anyone who's aspirational, wants to push and drive and all that. I know my old lady's like, hey, at least your hobby's making a little bit of money, whatever. Yeah. I'm like, I'm a UPS driver. That's the bulk of my money.
Yeah.
Like, I'll buy some, I'll get some Whataburger from what I make here on YouTube.
Dude, but that's the best way to do it. So, like, I never got into this. When I started Double Fries No Slaw, I never got into it. Like, I knew it would make a little side change, right? Like, I knew that it would maybe make some beer money or whatever, right? Like, great. Right. I never got into it to go full time. For 3.5 years of doing this, it was my side thing. Like, I just kind of was like, oh, well, this is fun. I like Florida State. I want to talk about them. I'm a fan, so I'll just talk about them on my show. And I was making a little side money on the side. I think if you get into it with the mindset of, I'm doing this to not have to work anymore, I mean, that can certainly work, but I think it becomes a job very quickly at that point. And maybe it motivates some people to, like, hustle and do things the right way, but I fell in love with it, and I still do it today because my goal wasn't to make money at the beginning. My goal was to just do something that I loved. And so doing it that way and going that route, and then seeing it start to grow, and then seeing it start to build, and starting to wrap my head around, like, oh, wait a minute, this actually could work out if a couple of things fall into place. It's kept it from ever feeling like a job. Now, there are some tedious things. I mean, this, like editing a video or having to make a thumbnail, like, there's some tedious stuff that goes along with it. But the bulk of what I do is just talk about football. And I think because it was my hobby for so long, I've never gotten tired of it, right? I mean, there's late nights and there's stuff that I'm like, oh man, I got to go do this real quick, or I got to watch this MAC game so that I can talk whatever. But for the most part, like, if people go in with the right mindset, for anybody that is listening, and you can hit me up on Twitter if you have more questions about this kind of stuff. But I think that finding something you're passionate about, finding something you love is way more important. And if you're good at it, and if you're passionate about it, because your passion is going to come through to people, that's when, for some people it's a year, for some people it's 5 years, for some people it's 10 years, whatever. That's where, like, years down the road or time down the road, you can't actually do something with it, that's bigger than you ever thought.
Right. Yeah. Like in the late 90s, I was in a local metal band and played guitar. And I won't say things are starting to pop off, but we were getting more gigs. We were getting tighter as a unit, writing more complex and better songs. And I could see a point where, we were never going to be Metallica or anything,
Sure.
but I could see a point where we could make a living, do touring. I could see that happening. I could see it on the horizon. But at the time, that's when I met my wife. I already had a kid. And then you hear all the stories about, guys on the road, they never see their kids. And, my dad left me when I was 5. So I'm like, dude, that's the last thing I want to do is
Yeah.
do what my father did to me. And I want to be there for my kids. So I had to kind of pick and choose. And I'm like, I'm just, I found the woman that's right. I knew it right off the jump. We've been married now for 26 years, had some more kids, raised them up. And I'm like, I had to pick a lane. Am I going to be creative and give up a lot of that? Or am I going, because the balance isn't there, especially back then, it wasn't there. So for me, finding YouTube is actually my youngest son, when he was like a junior in high school, started a YouTube gaming channel. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here watching him do all this stuff. And I'm like, well, shit, I got a computer. I can do this. I once upon a time, I was creative. I make my own thumbnails, and then I'm kind of dusting off all this creative energy that's been dormant forever. And so to me, that's what's been fun. Not only, I don't have to spend all my energy just yelling at the TV screen at other people talking. Now I could be the a-hole that's out there throwing out my opinions and doing all that. So it's just been, to me, it's been great fun regardless of the money. And, if I grow to an extent one day to where I can actually maybe have a part-time job doing this or whatever, that's a bonus for me.
Yeah.
But
That's exactly
kind
how
of where
I
I'm
view
at.
it. 100%. Like I still like doing it. If I ever get to the point where I don't enjoy doing it, I mean, I'll probably start to do something else, find something, because I'm really at a point in life, and I'm not like super old or anything, but since I've been doing something that I love for more than 2 years now, and as a hobby for longer than that, I can't envision. Now, I mean, at the same time, I still need to pay my mortgage, right? But I can't envision myself going back and doing something that I don't at least enjoy a little bit. So yeah, if this ever becomes a job or ever feels tedious or anything like that, I probably won't do it, or I'll have to adjust the way I'm doing it, right? Or change some things up. So I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah, because YouTube burnout's a real thing, and you hear about it from all these other guys. Huge channels, guys that make a shit ton of money, but
Yeah.
problem is 4, 5, 6, 10 years down the line, they're just done. They're spent.
Yeah.
They're over it. They've made their money and they kind of peace out. I just don't want to do that. I just, it, like, if there's a week where I'm just burnt out and I'm just like, man, I'm just kind of, I don't want to feel obligated. I'll
Yep.
just go away for a week. I mean, especially at this point, I don't have any sponsors. I don't have obligations or responsibilities as far as YouTube goes. It's just what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'll probably look to keep it that way. That way, if I'm like, dude, I'm just not doing nothing this week. I'm going to kick back, collect my thoughts, and then I'll come back strong the next week. That's the freedom of it. Being able to do that is cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
100%.
All right. So before we get into some of these other topics, we'll get back onto sports actually, but Florida State, I did a video just a little bit ago where I kind of broke down where I thought were the top 2 teams in each conference, who I thought could get to a conference championship, who I thought could win and get to the playoff. And I also gave dark horses. For me, and this is weird as hell saying it, but I think Florida State's a dark horse, because you don't think of Florida State in those terms. Because, I don't have Ohio State playing for the Big Ten title, but I don't have them as a dark horse either, because it's freaking Ohio State. They just won a title. I can't put them in as a dark horse. It's ridiculous. And Michigan either. But FSU, just because of the year last year was just Twilight Zone. It was it was crazy bad. So to me, I don't know. They kind of qualify as a dark horse this year. They can kind of, because nobody has them in, in the, if you look at everyone's preseason predictions, no one has FSU in the ACC title game or even in the picture really. Everyone thinks they'll be better. Everyone thinks they'll make a bowl game. But I'm like, this is FSU, you know. I think if they're going to win 6 or 7 games, they're probably going to be in 9, 10, 11 of those games with a chance to win. So I got them as a dark horse. If the ball jumps their way, and let me know how you feel about them, coming into the season.
I think that's a really good point. You think about last year, and fans are, what are we, 11 days away? They're trying to forget last year as much as they can. But you think about last year, every single thing that could go wrong went wrong. And usually in football, like half the breaks go your way and half the breaks go the other way, or something close to that, 60-40, right? 70-30 is a really bad year, right? And so, I mean, if things would have gone 70-30 last year, Florida State probably goes 6-6, which is still a disaster at Florida State, but it's not a 2-10 disaster. So, is there a scenario where, I think about 2013 when they won the national championship, man, every break went their way. Not only were they super talented and had Jameis and all this other stuff, every single break went their way. And so if that was to happen this year, right, you catch Alabama sleepwalking in week 1, Miami comes into that game in their 5th game, having already lost to like Notre Dame and Florida, which is very possible. I think both those are going to be like less than a touchdown spread. So maybe Miami's licking their wounds a little bit. You probably lose to Clemson no matter what this year, but you beat Florida at the end of the year because Lagway can't stay healthy. Yeah, there's no reason to think that Florida State's talent level alone couldn't make them a dark horse. Now, I'm not predicting that. I'm not saying I think they win 9 or 10 games, but I think their ceiling truly is around 9 games. That's not my prediction. I don't think they win that many. But you're telling me that if you say your ceiling's 9 games, if they don't just slip up and win one more, Florida State goes 10-2, they're going to the playoff this year. Like that is going to happen. I don't see them getting left out in that scenario unless some just crazy, crazy things happen when you think about all the carnage that's going to happen everywhere else. And so if I've got their ceiling at 9, is it crazy to think that they couldn't find one more win somewhere? Maybe Florida's not as good as we think. Maybe Miami's not as good as we think. So yeah, I'm not predicting it, but they are a dark horse, especially when you look at the talent. They don't have as much talent on their team as Clemson. They don't have as much talent on their team as Miami. But if you, and I know that people will get upset about star rankings and how much they matter and this, that, and the other. If you just look at the talent on the team, Florida State has the 3rd most talent in the conference. Now, that could have been, that was the true last year too. So talent doesn't win you a lot of stuff. But you just look at like the offers and the recruits and the guys they brought in, they are the 3rd most talented team in the ACC. I don't think they'll be the 3rd best team, but I think having them as a dark horse is very fair. And again, I'm not predicting it this early. I need to see what they look like week 1. But yeah, I think that's a very fair take for them.
Yeah, I know. Because look, Duke can creep up and get somebody. They looks like they're that's a program that I don't know if it's so much on the rise, but it's solid. It's pretty. Yeah. It's been pretty good last couple of years. Louisville's got me excited. I actually think they could play for an ACC title this year.
I've got them in mind. I've got them in Clemson. I agree with you there.
And you can easily make a case for Georgia Tech breaking through this year. Having said all that, though, I've been watching the Big 12 forever, and when it's Texas and OU, whenever they're down, but any given year, they pop off. And when they got the team, they just freaking run the whole damn conference.
Yeah.
Florida State, I mean, I'm not saying that they can do all that, but good God, like you said, 10, I could see 10 happening. If some of these breaks that broke their back last year actually go their way, if they can stay healthy. If that shit-talking quarterback that y'all got, because that was that the game 1's Alabama, right?
Yeah.
And it's Alabama at y'all's house.
Yep.
That's a huge measuring stick game. And I try not to watch other conference games. I'd rather watch the Big 12. But as I said before, there's a few exceptions I'll make, especially when there's drama, especially when you got a quarterback who's like, Boston College sucks, their coach sucks, their culture sucks, their program sucks. I'm at a real university. We got Alabama. Screw them. we're going to kick their ass. I'm like, whoa, okay. Let's, This is like what the hell is his like Joe Namath? It's
Yeah.
like a Joe Namath moment. Let's see if the check can cash. That gets me excited whenever I see that. Coming from a wrestling fan, hey, I love the drama. I love when there's heat, and there's major heat with that game. So let's go.
Yeah, a lot of people got upset about that. And I thought, at first, I was like, oh, no, what are you doing? But then I thought, man, this is entertainment. Like, this is supposed to be fun. Like, I wish every player would do that. I get it, right? You back it up on the field and all this stuff. And yeah, if every player did it, then it wouldn't be as special. But like, this is what you're supposed to do. I love Diego Pavia. Now, he went out and backed it up last year. But like, I think this is great because it's entertainment. Like, it's not that serious, right? Like, we all want to win and we all live and die with this stuff. But like, at the end of the day, we're watching to be entertained. And it's on that game specifically. If he goes out there and backs it up and they somehow find a way to beat Alabama, there ain't another team on the schedule that they won't have confidence going into that game. Now, will they win every game? I don't think so. That's not my point. But you beat them week 1, you go into the rest of the year thinking we can take down this team, no matter who it is. So yeah, you're right. That is the measuring stick of, same token, you lose that game by 30, you're looking at the rest of the schedule saying, oh boy, buckle up, at what happened last year. But yeah, I mean, you go out and back it up, the whole country kind of takes notice for sure.
See, it's that quarterback's attitude that has me believing they're a dark horse. They got a shot at the ACC. FSU does.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they're one of the most talented teams in the ACC, but they're not the most talented. So what trumps talent? Attitude, chemistry. Yeah. That stuff will always trump talent. When you got a team that's just together, united, and they're just like, no one can screw with us, and they're going to tear everybody a new ass every week. That's what I want. I'll take a little less talent if I got the proper locker room, if I got the proper attitude going into every game and going into every practice. So if that kid could come in and play his ass off, even in a loss against Alabama, but if he goes out, like a champ, even if he gets knocked down and gets back up and keeps going and has a good game, even in a loss, and they got a chance to win the game. We don't know what Alabama is. We know they're talented out the ass. We know they're going to have a great defense. We know they're going to have a run game. But other than that, I don't know how good that quarterback's going to be. I don't know how good the offense is going to be. People can say whatever they want, but it's a question mark. It's a question mark with Ohio State. It's a question mark with Michigan. It's a question mark with a lot of people, traditionally great teams. It's a question mark. People love Penn State this year because they've seen the problem, know the players that are there. But no, if that kid's attitude can show up on the field and he gives it everything, and those other players see it and rally behind him, then that can lead them to a dark horse position where they have a shot at the ACC. If not, if the players hate him, then it's going to be a long season again. But
yeah,
to me, that's the shot. You got to have somebody, you got to have an asshole in there willing to take the shots and go. And now it's at quarterback. It's not at linebacker. It's not a defensive end. It's not a running back. It's freaking quarterback with that attitude. And it can work. We've seen it work with Cam Newton before.
Yeah.
We've seen it work in the NFL with Cam Newton. So if it can work there, it can work, in the ACC.
Yeah. And like you said, you mentioned, teams, it's not always the most talent. And, obviously Florida State was like the poster child for having a lot of talent last year and not living up. But yeah, I mean, look at teams like Georgia Tech. Like Georgia Tech had some good players. Like, don't get me wrong, but they weren't the most talented. They shouldn't have taken Georgia to 8 overtimes. They shouldn't have won some of the games they won. They had less talent than Miami when they played them last year. They had less talent than Florida State when they played them last year, but they played together and behind a quarterback who absolutely was willing to die out on the field for their team. And there's a lot of examples of that. Like that's just the first one that comes to my mind. But when you have that togetherness and your leader is willing to, I think about Riley Leonard, at Notre Dame, like dude nearly died on the first drive of the national championship. And I mean, I know that game didn't work out for them, but man, when you see that, what are you willing to do as an offensive lineman or a defensive tackle or a linebacker to like go out and back your guy up? So yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that is a big part of it.
Yeah. MBM brings up a good point about DeBoer, he may have wished he stayed at Washington. Alabama is just a different culture. We don't know yet because 9-3 is a good year. Yeah. 9-3 is a hell of a good year. I know they didn't make the playoff, but they were right under, one of the first teams out of the playoffs at 9-3. Now, you lose to Vanderbilt, you lose to last year's Oklahoma team that kind of sucked, and you go in there and get just bounced. I mean, I get it, but for any coach that wants to follow Nick Saban, that's lunacy. That's jumping the Snake River on a tricycle. It's hard to do, man. So to me, FSU's got a shot at that first game. They got a shot the whole year. To me, it's not like the ACC is that tough. You can make a case that the last year the Pac-12 was insanely tough. That was one hell of a damn final, hurrah for the Pac-12. But the ACC is not. I don't see them as like. Is SMU going to come back and be SMU again, or is that a one-off? We don't really know. Miami's good, but are they going to keep shooting themselves in the foot over and over again? Because that's their MO. Clemson. They look like a beast, but right now they're a beast on paper. And they were good last year, but they weren't that. They were 9-3 in the regular season too, weren't they?
Yeah, 9.
Yeah.
And then they lost, in the playoff too. So you're talking about a 4-loss team. They were. I do think Clemson's really good. Like, I'm not trying to throw shade at them. I think they'll win the ACC. I think they'll go to the playoff. But yeah, you look at the rest of the ACC, and there's nobody that just like absolutely strikes fear in anybody's heart. Now, we talked about good teams that might put it together. Louisville might put it together. Georgia Tech might put it together. Florida State might put it together. But yeah, I don't think you look at the rest of the conference and think like, oh no, like what are we going to do? I mean, Florida State plays, talking about their schedule. They play Stanford, they play Wake, they play Virginia, they play Virginia Tech, they play Pittsburgh, who's on a 6-game losing streak. Like, there's a lot of teams that are in the ACC that you're like, well, yeah, you should beat those teams, right? Like, anything
can give you the shivers.
But Miami will be tough, Clemson will be tough, but the rest of their schedule outside of the Bama game really isn't that bad.
Yeah, it isn't. And do I think they could beat Miami? Yeah. Do I think they could beat Clemson? Yeah, I mean, because there was a couple of years there when Clemson won the title, they looked unfreaking beatable. They just looked like they looked like one of the top Alabama teams or something. It was just, they were scary as hell. I don't know. Maybe they get back to that, but I don't. Right now, I'm not convinced of it. I got to see it before I can believe it. Let's put it that way. I know they'll be good. More than likely a playoff team. I got them in the ACC conference title game. I don't have them winning it, though. My pick is actually Louisville to win the ACC this year, but that's just because I'm a contrarian and a bit of a butthole. But with FSU having, FSU has a definite shot, though, to me.
Yeah.
All right, going to switch gears here a little bit. CFP. Yeah, the Big Ten threw out some stuff that made me smile. Apparently, I can't remember who. I think it was Pete Thamel that I looked at on X talking about it, but it was they were talking 18 teams, 20, 24, 28, 32 in the CFP. Just, I don't know. I don't mind going past 16. For me, 16 was like the number, but I don't mind going past 16 because that what they want is those automatic qualifiers. That's the big thing. And I think rightly so. And Greg Flugar from Peek Around the Corner, I think he's the first person I saw put it out there where if you go past 16, you can get more automatic qualifiers to the ACC and the Big 12, and then they would likely support the Big 10 in the automatic qualifiers. I'm cool with 4-4-2-2. Just coming from the Big 12, who's going to get one team in every year at 5-11. I mean, that's the way it is. Unless there's a freak show year once in a while, we get 2, but we're never going past 2. But if you're talking a 24-team playoff or a 20-team playoff, and the Big 12 gets 3 automatic qualifiers, or whatever, if it's 5 for the big conferences and 3 for the Big 12 and the ACC, sign me the hell up. Sign me up, TJ. I'm all about that. 3's better than 1. That's all I know. 3's better than 1.
Yeah, a lot of people, I wonder if he's right about this. And a lot of people have, you mentioned some of the big guys like Klatt and stuff. I was glad that Pate called this out, and people have different opinions on Pate, whatever you like it. But I did like this point, and you can hate everything else that he does if you're watching this, and that's fine. But I like that he called this out. I don't know if this is the Big Ten that really wants this, or if they're just proposing something that's so out there that it makes everybody say, oh, that's crazy. All right, we'll take what you wanted earlier. we'll take the other thing, because the Big Ten really wants the 16, the 4-4-2-2-2 model that you were talking about. They really want that. And so it's the idea of like, you tell your wife you're going to do something absolutely crazy, and she says no, and you say, oh, just kidding, I'm watching the game with the boys and having some beers, and then she's like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. So I almost wonder if he's right about that, that like the Big Ten doesn't really want 28 teams, 24 teams. They're just saying something that's like crazy for us to think about now, so that we'll go back to, okay, we'll just give them what their first ask was, like the first little thing. I don't know, man, 24, 28 would be, it just sounds insane to jump that high. At this point, I don't even really care. I'd like for them to lock in on something and be done with it, so that we don't have this speculation every offseason of like, are we going to this? Are we going to that? Like, just lock in on a number and let us roll. I think they'll eventually settle on 16. But I don't know, man. The 28 feels like it would be wild. But I mean, shoot. I mean, you look at, there's a ton of teams. I mean, you heard like even the SEC, like Drinkowitz is like, yeah, we need like 30 teams in this thing. And I'm like, man, this seems like a lot. But shoot, maybe that'd be good for FSU to find a way back into it soon enough.
Well, hell, that's pretty much the only way Missouri can get in. I mean,
yeah.
Even when they have a great year, they're not considered. They're not considered at all. I mean, a 9-3 Alabama versus a 9-3 Missouri, they're not thought about.
100 times out of 100, yeah. Or a 9-3, or other teams too, not even in the SEC. Like a 9-3, Michigan's getting in, or a 9-3 Notre Dame's getting in, or a 9-3, Clemson would get in, I think, over Missouri, even though they're in the ACC and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. Like, nobody wants to. I mean, do you want to see Missouri in a playoff? Sorry to any Missouri fans that may tune in here, but like, is that even something you care about seeing? Like, and that probably goes for a lot of teams, but I don't. I don't even like Miami, and I'd rather see Miami in a playoff if I wasn't, a hater. I'd rather see Miami in a playoff than Missouri, because at least it'd be exciting.
Yeah, I hear you. See, if you go up too high to me, like 28, 32, you're going to get 8 and 4 teams in there. There's just no way around it.
Oh, you probably get some 7 and 5 SEC teams in there, to tell you the truth.
Very well could. Probably get the whole damn conference in
there. It's like baseball. Yeah, I don't know if I follow all the sports, and so like baseball and stuff, you got every SEC team in the postseason because they put 64 teams in, right? And so you can go 2-10 in conference, and you're like, put them in. Who cares? Like, they played a tough schedule. It's the same logic as football. Tough schedule, put them in. They didn't win any of their games, but at least they played tough teams. So that's eventually what we'll get to, is how big do we have to get all the SEC teams in? How do we get Mississippi State and Kentucky in? And that's the number we probably need to go to.
Yeah, it's like the NCAA tournament last year. 14 of the 16 SEC teams are in it. Man. And I'm like, hold on. They had a great year. I can make a solid case for 10. You're throwing in 6 more just because they're SEC. It's ridiculous.
And then they had 2 teams in the Final Four. They won the national championship. I get all that. They were very good at the top. There's no doubt about it. They were very good in the middle. But all their crappy teams lost in the first round. Like, all the teams that sucked all year, just because they were losing to good teams, didn't all of a sudden make them a good team. They all lost in the first round, right? And it's hard to make that argument when they go on and win the national championship. Like, oh, well, our conference is the best and all this stuff. They were the best at the top, but that doesn't mean we put all the crappy teams that lost to the good teams all year in just because they had good losses. Like, isn't sports about winning?
Yeah, I mean, if they had 5 teams in the tournament, Florida's still winning the thing.
Yes, they're still winning it all.
They were that hot. They got that. They were that good and that hot and made the run. They were always going to make the run. So it's like, does the SEC need more money? I didn't know they were broke. Apparently they need more. They need all the help they can get from college sports to get all the money they can, because my God, they can't keep up with the ACC. They can't keep up with the Big 12. It's just too much spending against the poor little SEC. So let's try to help them get up the mountain. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
I mean, the most embarrassing was UNC getting in. That That was the most embarrassing.
With their AD on the board. Yeah, I'm not an ACC stan at all, so I don't mind calling that out. That was such BS. Like, that was so absurd for them to get in. And then, of course, they got embarrassed and an early exit, like everyone kind of thought that would happen.
That was the one time they looked like an SEC school.
Yeah.
The one time. It's got that BS. Let's see here. Yeah, like, okay, from like I said before, though, with me with the Big 12, it's because overall I'm an automatic qualifier guy. All this talk about, well, you want to earn your way in. You play if you have play-in games with an AQ model, that's exactly what you do. If it's just a 5 and 11, to me, you're not playing your way in. It's the Olympic committee. It's figure skating. It's who gets the most votes to get in.
Yeah,
that's subjective.
You're spot on there. Yeah, I understand the fans of the Big 12 and the ACC that say we can't agree to the 4-4-2-2 model because when we do that, we are agreeing to be worth half as much as those conferences. I understand that argument. But what I'm telling you from a year-to-year basis is that if you're the ACC or you're the Big 12 and you agree to this 5-11 BS, you will get one team in every year. Are there some years that maybe now who knows how long they'll be in the conference? Are there some years where if Clemson goes 12-0 and Florida State goes 11-1, both those teams would get in? Yes, I think their brands would probably push them over the line. But there'd be a lot of years. Like you take a 10-2 Miami or a 9-3 Alabama. It just happened last year. Alabama finished one spot ahead of them. And so I think that's trouble. I think, the Big 12 is going to get one team in almost every single year. Now, again, could there be a perfect scenario where two teams go into the Big 12 championship undefeated, and so they both get in? Yes, that specific scenario could certainly happen. I just don't think it happens more often than not. I think you got to take the most teams in, and so to me, that's the 4-4-2-2 model. I know this is crazy. I haven't seen anybody propose this, but I've thought about this a lot. I would love if they did a 4-4, like 2.5 model, where one team from the ACC or Big 12, based on either rankings or it rotates year to year, where one team gets a third team in. Maybe rotating every year would be a good idea, with like certain qualifications. Like you're not going to put a 7-5 team in or something like that, but where every other year you get a third team in. And would that make it a little more palatable for the ACC and Big 12 to know that like every other year you're going to get a third team, or if you want to do it based on rankings, like whoever the third best team is in the ACC and Big 12, one of those two, make a play-in game for that. I don't care. Put one of those teams in, right, to try and play their way in or something. So I don't know, but I agree with you. You got to go the automatic qualifier route. If you don't, the Big 12 and the ACC are getting screwed every year.
Yeah, to me, the best model is 16 teams, automatic qualifiers. The Big 12 and the ACC get 2 each, but for me, you would take the conference rankings, the number 3 team in each conference, ACC versus Big 12. They play every year. The winner gets the spot.
Yeah. So
you have to win to get in, as far as you get that third AQ spot.
And that'd be great anyway, because like the first and second teams are already like it's, you look at like teams like Ohio State that didn't have to play in a conference championship game last year. They got to sit at home. Now I'm sure they wanted to play in the conference championship, but they got to sit at home and rest while Penn State and Oregon and Georgia and Texas were all playing, Arizona State, Clemson. And so, yeah, why not put the third place teams up against each other? They're not playing on conference championship weekend anyway, and you could kind of play your way in. I love that idea. I think that's phenomenal. I think that kind of play-in game would be so great. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine we got them in the NCAA tournament. We just don't care about them because they're like 16 versus 16. But could you imagine a play-in game between, I don't know, who's going to finish, BYU and
Miami last year?
Miami, BYU. Yeah, last year would have been BYU and Miami. That would have been phenomenal to see.
Great game.
Ward, like that would be so much fun. So I'm all about it. I'm all about earning your way in. Like, I hate the committee. I hate the rankings. Like, oh, this team's sexier than this team. No, just play games on the field and make the games matter.
Yeah. That's football. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
The NFL has always had a better postseason system than college football. Always. And it's not based off of who's sexier, what market, who's got the history, or any of this shit. It's about what do you do during the regular season and what does that earn you towards the postseason.
Yeah.
That's all it's about. It ain't
And
about who it.
it
Like,
ain't just the NFL. It ain't just the
yeah,
NFL. It's every major sport: hockey, basketball, European soccer, baseball. It's not about, dude, the Yankees missed the playoffs some years. The Dallas Cowboys missed the Lakers missed the playoffs some years. Like, these are normal things that happen about the biggest brands in sports. They missed the playoffs some years. And so that's okay because you didn't earn it. Just because, like, if college football happened, like in the NBA, the Lakers would be in every single year. The Cowboys would be in every single year, and they'd be a high seed too, right? Like
every
the
time.
Yankees would be in every single year. And so, but that's not what we like about sports. We don't like, it's not a pageant show, right? It's you play the games on the field and you go win or you lose. If you lose, better luck next year. If you win, congratulations. You get to go. So I don't know why college football can't understand that is, I don't know, maybe me and you are the idiots. And but I don't know, man. I don't understand why that simple concept of games matter is not important, for our sport.
Well, because the NFL is one league, so they do what's best for the league itself, not just for the Dallas Cowboys, not just for the Green Bay Packers, not just for the 49ers. It's for everybody. So because it's like that, because they really pushed parity in the 90s, they're like, we're going parity. It has to be. And it was the right thing to do, even though the Cowboys haven't been in the NFC Championship game for 30 freaking years because of it. I'm a big diehard Cowboys fan. Pisses me off. But I can't blame the system. You have to look to ownership and the coaches they hire. You have to look within.
It's bad for the Cowboys, but it's great for the league. Look how big the league is right now. Like, it's international at this point. Like, they made a great decision. Teams like Oklahoma City would have never won the finals had the NBA not done things similar. Teams like, Tampa Bay and Florida would never win the Stanley Cup if the NHL wasn't similar. Like, man, this is great. I mean, those are great sports stories and what we love about sports, right? We all love when our teams win, no doubt. But man, what this is, and college football is like, nah, we're going to keep giving it to Alabama and Ohio State every year. Like Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama, like we're going to keep going back to that.
And see what the ACC did with the unequal revenue sharing, that to me is so backwards. It's not, and I get it, because Florida State, Clemson, Miami, they want to get out because they can make a lot more money. They got the brand value to make a lot more money with consolidation into one of the big two conferences. I get it. But that's going to happen anyway. I mean, you delayed it 5 years. What does that do for you? And I think we got to, probably the time we have left is talk about, where the ACC's headed. I see unless there's a super league that pops off, which there's a lot of pushback because there's a lot of traditionalists in college football. That's why these changes, even though there's changes, there's a lot of pushback on those changes. So if you think a super league is just going to happen and you got all these people with huge political power, like Texas, like Alabama, like Ohio State, Memphis, or not Memphis, Michigan, the other big M school. If you think they just want to give up their political power, their stroke, their prestige to create a super league, you got another thing coming. So outside of a super league and outside of a straight up merger between the Big 12 and the ACC, I see the ACC getting Pac-12. The Big 10 SEC take who they want. The Big 12 is going to take the rest of the value out of there. And then you're left with the Oregon State, Washington State equivalents. And then you got to backfill with American schools or Conference USA schools or whatever the hell. You got to try to survive in that regard.
Yeah, I think and all the unequal revenue sharing. So if I have my Florida State hat on, which it typically is on, it's great for us, right? There's no doubt. The unequal revenue sharing, like, I'm not going to hate on it as an FSU fan. As a college football fan, it's ridiculous. It is so dumb. Like, it makes, like, why and I thought Florida State had an okay shot with the lawsuit, and I thought they would eventually settle anyway. But I don't know. I thought the ACC gave them way too much. As a fan of that team, I'm glad they did, right? Like, I'm not complaining about an unfair advantage for my own team. If I was a fan of any other team, I'd be like, dude, what the hell? Like, what did our president just agree to? Like, what do we got going on here? But So I am in full agreement there from a big picture perspective. Yeah, I mean, I think what's good for the ACC, and I don't want to give them too much love, what's good for them is that at least their media rights deal is signed until 2036. So I think they're relatively safe from like a money perspective until then. Even if Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, Louisville goes to the Big 12, whatever, right? Even if some of these big brands leave, I think they're relatively safe until that date. But then when you get 10 years down the road, right, you get to 2036, I think you're looking around saying, because the Pac-12's problem was their media rights deal was expiring like, next year, like, the year after. So I think the ACC will be fine for several years from a money perspective, but from a brand perspective, I mean, who's the best brand that's going to be left in the ACC? Like Wake Forest, Syracuse, Boston College, like teams like that, Pitt, if the Big 12 doesn't say we want West Virginia to have a buddy, and if they take them too, like if they take off the top 5, or you think about once the big 4 or 5 teams are gone, and then you're getting into that Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech range, so yeah, I mean, I think long term from a brand perspective, I don't know that ACC and Big 12 fans, I guess there are some because people just like to argue on the internet, but like, I don't know. I mean, you could argue ACC or Big 12 one way or the other, and there's convincing arguments for both. But in 5 or 6 years, 10 years for sure, there ain't going to be no argument. Unless they merge, then that'll be fine. But they can be the ACC will fall far behind everyone else. Like it'll be the Big 2, and then it'll be the Big 12, and then the ACC will. I mean, they'll be ahead of the American, I guess, because they'll just steal teams from there. But it'll be a big gap between the Big 12 and the ACC, maybe bigger than even is between the Big 12 and the SEC is.
Yeah. Like really, I think the Pac-12, the way it's presently going to be constructed, I think it has a chance to be a fun league. The ACC is not going to die and go away, just like the Pac-12 didn't. That's kind of why I use that as an equivalent.
Yeah.
But I used to think they would last till 2036, but there's a scary thing because I believe if the ACC falls under 15, then ESPN can pull that media rights deal.
Yeah.
I think that's still a thing, even with the extension. So, I mean, what are they at now technically? Is it 18 or 19?
I think they're at 18 because Notre Dame's not counted.
Okay, so it's 18. So if they lose 4, I mean, literally the next day, ESPN can just jack them, couldn't they?
Yeah. And I think that's why you mentioned the Pac-12. Like, I mean, regionality going away from college football sucks so much. But, what if Memphis, Tulane, and USF go to the Pac-12 over the ACC? Like, that will be the death blow. Because they'll have to, once Florida State, Clemson, and others leave, they'll have to backfill it with somebody. Like, somebody will have to come in to keep them above that threshold that you're talking about. And I'm sure they'll make a play at Memphis. I'm sure they'll go at Tulane. I'm sure, maybe they'll go after like smaller schools that are in that region, like ECU and stuff like that. But what if some of those teams say, nah, we'd rather go to the Pac-12, or Memphis continues to try and get into the Big 12 or something like that? Like, that's where the ACC, I think, is in a lot of trouble, is if they can't get that next level. Because then, I mean, at that point, shoot, what are you going after at that point if you're the ACC? If Memphis and Tulane tell you no, USF goes somewhere else, like, where the heck are you even going?
Yeah, and one thing to really keep an eye on is the next media rights deal for the Big 12.
Yeah.
Just the valuations they were given by private capital. And if you think about it, these monster streamers are not fully into live sports yet. Amazon probably being the most into it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But speculation and what the experts are saying, like I read had an article I did a video on from Bloomberg, Netflix, Apple, they're all got tons of money. I mean, way more than the traditional partners do. And they're going to become, and you think about all the rights in the early 2030s, not just college football, but the NFL, NBA, NCAA tournament, CFP is going to be up again. So all of these media rights. And so there's going to be a frenzy. There's going to be traditional media like ESPN and Fox, NBC, CBS trying to keep rights or trying to strategically get whatever rights they need to stay afloat. And then you're going to have Amazon coming in hot and heavy, possibly Netflix, Apple, who knows, Google, So they're
Yeah,
all
there's
going to be coming into the market.
service that we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah.
By that
So
point.
there's going to be a lot of competition. That's the thing. A ton of competition for these rights. The Big 12 has a real shot of getting paid. I'm not saying Big 10 SEC level, because I fully expect both of those to be making $100 million a year just from the media rights, nothing else, just media rights. It can go up as much as $40 million per.
Yeah.
The Big 12, I'm expecting us to get to around 60. And if you think about it, at 2030, FSU's gone, Miami's gone, Clemson's gone. Let's just stick with those three. You're losing an ass ton of money off your ACC network, which you got to have, but all the subscribers gone out of there, because that's the three biggest fan bases you got gone. Corporate sponsorship money is going to do a nosedive. And if you just look at the viewership of the ACC, it's 4 teams the last 3 years. It's FSU, Clemson, Miami, and Georgia Tech. Of all teams, Georgia Tech's the 4th biggest viewership draw the last 3 years. If you lose those 4, that's literally half the viewership of the ACC. It slices in half, which is 4 teams, 4 of 18. That's nuts.
Yeah, and they're going to be locked. The thing that I had talked about earlier, like saving them, at least so they're making some money. I mean, they can't even renegotiate. I mean, first of all, you wouldn't want to renegotiate in 2030, I guess, at that point, because you just lost all your best teams, but they're locked into their deal. If the Big 12 starts making 60 and everybody else is making $100 million a year per team, the ACC is still floating there around. I mean, it'll be up to like 45 by then, 40, 50 maybe. But I mean, that's without your best teams. Like you said, all that other stuff is going to nosedive too.
Yeah. So if that's the reality, and then you look at a full share from the Big 12, if you're Louisville, why wouldn't you pay 75 at that point to get the hell out?
Yeah.
And if Georgia Tech doesn't get the invite to the Big 10, why wouldn't they pay 75 to get the hell out? If you're making 60 per versus whatever bullshit money's left in the ACC, I mean, the rest of your top tier 2 brands can be gone too, because it will be just worth it financially. From 2030 to 2036, making 60 per or making half of that, I think I'm going to the Big 12. I think 75 is a good deal. If it's 75, but you're making several hundreds of millions of dollars, or losing it if you stay in the ACC, I mean, some of these schools ain't going to have a choice. That's kind of where they are at. Yeah. NC State, why wouldn't I pay that money to get the hell out of here? Yep. And they would be a great get for the Big 12. Like you said before, Virginia Tech. Believe me, these schools have the money. They have boosters. They have freaking money people there. I mean, it ain't just Kansas with someone, or it ain't just Texas Tech. If Texas Tech out there in Lubbock, where the birds fly upside down because there ain't nothing worth shitting on out there. If they got the money, trust me, Georgia Tech's got the money. Somebody in Atlanta is loves that team, and they will help them pay their way out. If we don't already have a private equity deal at that time, and they're willing to help pay exit fees to expand. I don't know. I don't see a bright future. I don't see any. It's almost like a Hellraiser. Can you escape the hooks? And I just don't see them getting out of there.
Yeah. I think and they've been, they haven't been very forward thinking. And, when the Big 12 was focused on expansion a couple of years ago, that's not the route the ACC took. And so, it's hard to imagine a scenario where the ACC doesn't kind of get lapped by get lapped by everybody, right? The SEC and the Big 10 extend their lead. The Big 12 either pulls ahead or passes them significantly, whatever. And then, they'll probably find, against the new Pac-12 and the American and stuff like that. But I don't know. Like it's pretty bleak.
And see, there may have been some moves they could have done different, but the ACC, it's just bad timing. I don't really blame I don't think Jim Phillips is this horrible commissioner. I really don't. I think he's kind of pretty much doing everything he can. And, he's listening to Notre Dame too much, but when you're in his position, you got to kiss their ass.
Yeah.
That's where you are.
I don't think he's terrible. Now, I don't think he's good as Yormark, who is probably, the most forward thinking of any of them, right? But Phillips was dealt like a terrible hand. Like, here's this sinking ship, fix it. And there is no fix. Like, there's no possible way to fix it. And so, yeah, like, I think the ACC's problems stem from things that happened 20 years ago and not being forward thinking, locking in 20-year deals and, falling so far behind the SEC and the Big Ten when, the gap between the ACC and the SEC wasn't this big 15 years ago, right? But the SEC was able to market things better. And I mean, 15 years ago, Florida State and Clemson were winning titles, and you had other good teams in there too. So, but yeah, like Phillips, I don't really blame Phillips. Now, do I think he's made every perfect move or anything like that? No, not really. But he was dealt an impossible situation for sure.
Yeah, he's a cat that's been put in a bag and thrown in a river.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a good luck.
Yeah, but because as soon as Fox paid the Big Ten and ESPN paid the SEC, to me, the ACC, that their future was written, that they weren't going to have much of one. It was the same with the Pac-12. Actually, you know what? I think they wanted the Pac-12 to survive. They just wouldn't agree to the money.
Yeah.
And you had Oregon and Washington who they were going to the Big Ten. They were not going to do a long-term deal with that version of the Pac. That just wasn't happening. And, Yormark, the Big 12 said, you know what? We'll take that money. We'll take the deal. Cool. And what they saw at that point was, okay, we could do business with the Big 12. We will need a place in all this consolidation. We can't put everybody into the SEC. We can't put everybody into the Big 10. There's a lot of people talking 24, 28 teams or whatever going to those two conferences. No, not with that money. What they need is that third power conference to be kind of like your receptacle for the best tier 2 brands.
Yeah.
Because look, consolidation is happening because you want to see Alabama and Texas more often. You want to see Alabama versus Oklahoma more often. Georgia versus, you want those big premium matchups more often. That's why you're doing that. But the only way to get the full value out of the tier 2 brands, because they all have value. Pitt's got value. Louisville's got value. The only way to get the max out that value is to make sure every week they're playing another really nice tier 2 brand. Make sure they're playing Kansas State. They're playing Arizona State. They're playing Oklahoma State or TCU or Utah. That's the only way to maximize that. And because of that, you're going to look at all the Big 12 schedules. I mean, my God, once you get out of the non-con and into conference play, you're like, holy shit. Almost, I mean, unless you're playing UCF this year, you don't feel good because every week is another damn quarterback, another team, another head coach that can kick your ass. Yeah. It's scary. And we don't have a lot of Wake Forests out there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. You look at those tier 2 brands in the ACC, the Louisvilles and Pitt and Georgia Tech and teams like NC State. Well, yeah, you're going to tune in when those tier 2 brands play FSU and Miami and Clemson, of course, and when they play each other. But then there's a lot of, do you really care to tune in when Louisville plays against Wake or when, Syracuse, Cal plays against Pitt, or whatever? Like, come on, man. Like those, when you put you can get away with tier 2. When you go tier 2 versus tier 3 or 4, you're getting really bottom of the barrel here. It's like, who even cares, man? Like, look at the ratings. I mean, and that's not just me hating. Go look at the ratings for those games. Go look at how that stuff stacks up. It's terrible.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's why what they did. Now, even though not Oklahoma State, but Oregon State and Washington State, even though their ratings weren't bad, but it's like you got to nut cut somebody if you're the media partner. Someone's getting nut cutted, and they that's who they chose. They're way the hell out there, and they don't have the big brands. There's only two big brands out.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure they're great people. I'm sure they're great fans of it. I mean, the Washington State flag's been at every college game day forever, right? Like, but at the end of the day, it's still a business. Like, it's still like there really aren't a lot of feelings in business, right? Like, if every single Alabama fan somehow died and their ratings started to go to 0, they'd get cut off too, right? Like, that's just what, and I'm not saying you're one, But at the end of the day, it's a business. If Vandy starts drawing 50 million more eyeballs a year than Bama, they're going to go to the top. Like, that's just how business works, right? And it's nothing to do with anything else. Now, I'm certainly not saying that happens, but yeah, I don't, it just is what it is.
Vanderbilt's playing on ABC every week. That's what happens. What
they got that primetime spot.
Yep. All right. Let me see if I can go through just a handful of these comments here and then get you out of here. Like I said, I definitely appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
All right, Jimmy Otson, I like him. The ACC and the Big 13, okay, need to stick with auto bids, but negotiate up to 4-4-3-3 or 4-4-3-2. 4-4-3-2 is the more likely, and kind of like what you said, as far as maybe the Big Ten is negotiating like Trump, let's get 50% tariffs and scare the hell out of the whole world and settle for 15.
Back it down to 20,
maybe something like that.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Let's see here. Man, there's several. Sorry. Just trying to pick a good one here.
Oh, you're good.
All right. Almighty Finn, what's up? Numbskull. Jim Phillips is terrible. He didn't even speak up for FSU when the snub happened. Yeah, I get that. When they got snubbed, were they suing at that time, or is that before the lawsuit?
They hadn't dropped the lawsuit yet, but the ACC knew it was coming. Like they definitely knew that it was just days away.
So maybe I understand that a little, but you got to show everybody that we're going to stick up for you.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't heard too much about them sticking up for Miami against this with this Wisconsin business.
Yeah.
Unless I missed something, I didn't hear a lot from Jim Phillips' office.
I haven't heard anything on that. No, you're right.
Yeah, he should be telling the Big Ten to kiss his ass. Let's see. Old Patrick. If the Pac-12 had accepted the media deal offered to them at the time, the Big 12 would have been forced to accept a streaming deal for circus peanuts. And that's probably correct. I mean, this not everything's perfectly planned out. Sometimes opportunity just arises.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened for the Big 12. ESPN and Fox, the Pac-12 pissed them off. I mean, literally, like, what? You're not going to make what the SEC and Big 10 do. Get used to it. They didn't want to get used to it. So they decided, we're just going to nuke you. And that's what happened. So, but since that did happen, now the Big 12 has its place. Now the media partners have a plan for the Big 12, what they see the potential of the Big 12, which is tier 2 brands that have value and can make those media partners plenty of money as long as the money they're paying for it is right. That's why, to me, UNC going to the SEC or Big Ten doesn't make a lot of sense, because they're not going to make a lot of money for those media companies at those levels, at those prices. But they can make money, quite a bit of money, for them in the Big 12. I've always seen it like that. I mean, I don't know how you still feel about UNC, but I can't see them going to the Big 2. Not for that money.
Yeah, I feel like they would get maybe for if they gave them a partial share, if they were like a tag along. But yeah, that one doesn't. I mean, and if you read all the 4-letter network and everybody else that talks about it, the SEC seems enamored with UNC, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know they're really big draw in basketball too, but that's not what these contracts are driven on. So I don't know. I kind of agree with you there. But I don't know, man. If you listen to anybody that talks about it, they certainly love UNC going to the SEC, and they act like that's been a done deal for as long as it could be. And I don't know. I'm not as sold.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate, like I said, I don't hate UNC at all. It just doesn't make logical sense to me when you see everything else that's going on right now, which is largely based off of football, especially with the Big 2. I mean, that's, like you said, that's 75% of your money is football. Yeah. So
if it was 5 years ago and they were trying to capitalize on the Belichick thing, like the Big 12 has been able to on Dion, that would be different. I can't see Belichick coaching more than 3 years. To me, if he gets more than 3 years, and maybe if they're super successful and win 10 games a year, does he maybe coach a little? Yeah, sure. but I don't see him coaching more than 3 years. And so, well, it's going to take him 2 years to get out of the AC. Like they ain't going to be in the ACC this year or next year. So, or the SEC, sorry. So you're not even the SEC. You're not even able to capitalize on that. So,
well, all right. One last one. Mike Sharp, the top 2 ACC haters on YouTube in one place. Nice. Hey, I'll take it. I mean, I don't really hate anybody. It's not really personal. It's just, it's easy to see where everything's headed. And everything I hear from some ACC fans as far as scrambling, oh, we'll survive because of this or that. You're really jumping the shark on some of these ideas.
Yeah.
But, hey, do you. Anyway, I got to get out of here, TJ. But, man, I appreciate you coming on here. And if y'all aren't subscribed to College Football Addiction or Double Fries No Slaw, then you're an idiot. Get over there, check his stuff out. It's worth it.
I wasn't going to go that hard, but no, I appreciate it a ton. I appreciate you calling him out, so I didn't have to. But no, we have a good time with it, man. We just try and talk ball. Got a lot of stuff coming with the season coming up. So no, I'd sit here for 4 hours and just talk about football. So no, I appreciate you a ton for having me, man.
Oh yeah, indie media is where it's at. Screw that national stuff. What do they know anyway? Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.